I hope everybody is doing well. Osiris here. I'm stuck in the middle again, and I've recorded and deleted 3 videos this week. One right before the Chauvin verdict, which I should have known. I shouldn't have done it because my mind wasn't even on it. Actually, the verdict came down right in the middle as I was recording the video, so that was scrapped. Then I did 2 on reactions for the Chauvin verdict, and I didn't like any of them, so I scrapped them. This article today from Time brought me to record, so I'm grateful for that because I was struggling, almost like writer's block. But this one got me interested. It's the title of the article. This is from Time magazine. The title of the article says, "It was all worth it." So that really caught my eye because we're in the aftermath now. We're in the aftermath of the George Floyd killing and Chauvin being convicted on all 3 charges. So now the question is, where do we go from here? And it's very, very telling that Time magazine, their first thing is, let's get this message out here that it was all worth it. It was all worth it after being injured and arrested by police. These George Floyd protesters now feel vindicated. So I'm going to touch on it, but I'm going to touch on the article. Obviously, Time magazine is a left publication, just like most publications are out there, owned by a billionaire. They have an agenda. I want to make sure people understand that Time magazine is an establishment publication. This is not some rebel news. This is not some outside of the mainstream publication. So what if you are in an anti-establishment movement, which if you're in the streets, and this article is going to talk about people who were protesting, got hurt, things that they sacrificed, and this article is going to tell them that they didn't sacrifice in vain. That's very troubling if you're a protester. I'm going to keep my thoughts on the verdict out of this one. I just want to focus on just speaking to you if you're a protester, if you know people who are out there protesting. I'm not judging anyone. No one's right or wrong here. I'm coming from the angle of where is time pointing us. I'm not judging you as a protester or anybody you know as a protester. I'm looking at it. So if you're in the streets protesting, you're protesting against the state. Literally the state of Minnesota could be here, but the state as in the government. Who has control? The establishment. So if Time magazine is coming out with an article that says it was all worth it, what you did against the establishment, something is wrong. Something doesn't make sense. Our young people, millennials, Generation Z, they are finding out that being anti-establishment is a lot more difficult than it looks. They do not play around. They control things. And this whole anti-establishment movement was controlled by them. The narrative was controlled by them. The victory announcement is controlled by them. You can look at, Time's owned by Mark Benioff, a billionaire who supported Hillary Clinton. And it doesn't get any more establishment than Time magazine. So if they're patting you on your head, saying good job, something's wrong. And the tenor of the article, I'm going to read a piece of it here. The tenor is, you didn't lose what you lost. Time. Some people got injured, put back surgeries that they should have had. All these different things, the emotions. They're saying you did okay. You did a good job. They're not saying it's over now because I think they would get pushback. They're saying victory. They're saying it was all worth it. They quote one of the protesters, Danya Zaire, in New York City, where Danya Zaire was pushed by a police officer during Black Lives Matter march on May 29th. The 21-year-old now questions whether the conviction should be celebrated. Considering thousands who were hurt or arrested fighting for it, as well as the other black people killed by police since Floyd's death. So this is almost from Time Magazine. They're trying to reach out to people who are still having the energy like nothing was accomplished here. This is what control is. Time Magazine doesn't, if you are in a grassroots protest out there in the streets, Time Magazine doesn't tell you what anything is. They should be so far removed from what you are doing, they can't tell you what victory is or what should be celebrated or shouldn't be celebrated. You look at it, there's a quote, as much as people want to believe it was a victory, look at how much it took to get this victory, she says. It's really hard to take these things as wins when you see how much has been lost in the process. That statement is getting someone who, looking at it here, was out there, sacrificed, and get them to say, look how much it took to get this victory, making one of the protesters acknowledge this is a victory. I guarantee you there are protesters out there that don't view this as a victory at all. Not an occasion to, like some people were dancing. It was really sad to see. There's nothing to, no one is a winner here. It makes me it helps me see that a lot of people who were out there protesting, they didn't know what they were out there protesting for. They don't understand this. I didn't understand a lot of the thought and philosophies I have formulated when I was their age. When you look at most of the protesters were 18 to 34. It wasn't until about 34 I started getting all my ideas in my head and understanding this whole picture of our country. A lot of that was through Noam Chomsky, believe it or not. He's past his prime now, but when he was in his prime, he was a great philosopher. He taught me the word plutocracy. I actually found out about Noam Chomsky through these peer-to-peer sharing services like Napster and LimeWire and all these other things. And I don't know, I was listening to hip hop and you could see what people had in their library. And I would go in their library, I would see Noam Chomsky speaks. And these are just MP3s, not even video. And I just listened to one of them. I was like, wow, this is interesting. And I downloaded everything on it. And I took a class actually in linguistics that Noam Chomsky wrote the book on. So that was eye-opening. Shantania Love is more hopeful. 30-year-old mother of two was permanently blinded by a projectile that hit her in the eye as she was walking away from law enforcement in Oak Park, California. She thinks it was a rubber bullet that struck her as she turned around to look for her brother. Damn. She underwent 2 surgeries in an attempt to save her vision and now struggles with mundane tasks like pouring a cup of juice or walking up and down the stairs. Skewed depth perception. I know, so the article slanted to victimize the protesters. I understand that, but that's not what this video is about. That's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And at the end of it, this article really sums it up. On Tuesday, so this is after the verdict, she cried for 15 minutes straight, knowing she didn't lose her eye in vain. It's a sigh of relief that finally we get a little bit of justice. And what we are out here doing protesting wasn't done for no reason. Love says, I'm not blind for nothing. That hurts me in so many ways because I have to be honest with her. Nothing has been accomplished at this point. So I don't want to phrase it in a term that's so disrespectful to say you're out there and didn't accomplish anything. But I don't know of a nicer way to phrase it than you haven't accomplished anything. Even though I disagree with the cause, the reason, because it's too many Democrats involved with it. It's not a movement. These protests were not protests out of love. The civil rights era back in the day when these protests happened, those came from a place of love. Love of country, love of fellow man. Even if you are using a hose, a fire hydrant to beat me in the streets with a stream of water and dogs, I'm here out of love. That's not what this is here. This is a whole different co-opted piece of trash. But it saddens me to see that, for her to say I'm not blind for nothing. And I don't want to take away that hope for her. I want her to recover and go on with her life. But I think part of, Jack Prosobeck tweeted something the other day. Even though I don't believe in the cause for the reasons I just gave, it's up to us. And I'm getting older now in society. I know I'm not an old man, but I'm getting older. My wife, for whatever reason, my wife saw me the other day. She saw that I had way more gray hair than the last time she noticed. So she tells me, wow, you've got way more gray hair than you used to have. And then just cracks up laughing. And I'm glad I could amuse her. But yeah, I'm getting older. And Jack Prosobeck posted something that is very appropriate. It's a Greek proverb or saying. It goes, a society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in. And so my role is, I'm not going to be in these streets, but I can try to communicate to those protesters, even though I gave my reasons why I don't agree. I don't hate you. And I think that's, I mean, with this whole discussion, I I'm almost like done with the whole Chauvin Floyd discussion, because there isn't a common ground that I'm finding that we can reach out that's working. But the one thing that I can do is try to say, if you're going to protest, let me give you kind of the bigger picture of what's happening. You look at Patrisse Cullors. Nobody hates her for her money. The money isn't the problem. The problem is she's starting an anti-established, what's supposed to be an anti-established Marxist revolution, while being an extremely gifted and talented capitalist and taking money from the establishment. She had a YouTube deal. Anti-establishment people are more likely to get blocked from YouTube than to get a little of an official deal with YouTube. She's got a production deal with Warner Brothers. If you are really anti-establishment, you don't get production deals from the establishment. That doesn't happen. That makes no sense. You have a conflict of interest at best. At worst, you're doing their bidding. I just want to pass that along to the protesters, just to think about it, to think about what, because I think a lot of people were in the streets and they didn't know what a victory would look like or accomplishment would look like. And don't let the establishment tell you what the outcome should be. That should be clear. Hopefully we should be able to agree on that. The establishment, whether it's mainstream media, publications, politicians, they shouldn't be the ones telling you what is a success story or not. Thanks a lot for listening. Take care.